You're listening to The White Rabbit, conversations on the art of presenting in a rather noisy world. Your hosts are Matt Krause and Alper Rozanes. Matt helps leaders of international companies speak, write, and present with confidence. Alper is an author, communications trainer, and a startup investor with a diverse portfolio of companies in Barcelona. If you like this podcast, please share with your friends and colleagues. Now, on to Matt and Alper for today's conversation.
Alper, you wrote a book a few years back, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
And it was a book on presentations. And I'm holding the Turkish version in my hands. What other languages has it been written in?
Well, the original one was published in 2019, and this year the Spanish version is also available in the Spanish market of Amazon.
Okay. So there's a Turkish version and a Spanish version. What about an English version? Have you ever thought about doing an English version?
I thought you might ask that. Well, I thought about doing the English version. I mean, I could just write the book again in English myself. But the thing is, there are so many resources much better than this book in the English language. I mean, I can name at least 5 of them from the top of my head, and we can definitely include some of them in the show notes. The reason I focused on the Turkish and the Spanish was I basically saw an opening there, because when I did the research before writing the book in Turkish, I wasn't able to locate books on this topic, specifically focusing on this topic in Turkish. And apart from a couple of Spanish translations from the English resources that I mentioned, I also couldn't find titles focusing on this topic as well. So that's why I focused on these 2 languages.
And so you wrote originally in Turkish, is that correct?
Yes.
And tell me in Turkish, what is the Turkish title of the book, and then translate it into English for us?
The Turkish title is Fark Yaratan Sunumlar, which literally means presentations that make a difference.
Okay.
Which is the premise of the book. If you read it and if you apply the principles in the book, it's almost guaranteed that your presentations will make a difference in the future.
And who did you write this book for?
Well, when I was writing this book, as per the instructions of our pro bono mentor, Blair Ains, of course, he's not aware of this. He's talking about he's basically doing free mentoring for us. He's not aware of it.
Yeah.
In his book, he was talking about this one person that he imagined what he would want to help. And I basically did the same. I thought of one person who is in the business world, who is a professional let's say in a big company, who does presentations from time to time, but not like once a year. I'm thinking about this person does presentations like every 2 weeks or something. It could be quarterly presentations or management presentations, etc. And when I think of this person, I also see myself many years ago in the same situation. We have learned somehow to create presentations. Somehow we have seen this icon of this software called PowerPoint on the computer. We have played with it. We can navigate our way within the software. But most of us, including myself at the time, we weren't aware of some of the basic principles of visual communication. So this book is aimed at helping this specific person who I imagine is working in a big company, for example, who does presentations on a regular basis, to learn how to create a flow, the content of the presentation, which will resonate with his or her audience, and will give this person the skill set, the knowledge to design slides that are not only more aesthetically beautiful, let's say, but also slides that are able to serve his or her purpose of making his or her point across. The book is actually designed in 3 parts. The first part is the content of the presentation. The second part is how to design the slides. And the third one is to give you some tips and tricks and the skill set to be able to deliver it better. So again, the premise of the book is that this person can read it, can learn, can find out how to create the content that will resonate with his or her audience, how to design better slides, and actually use some of the tips to make a better delivery when the time comes to present it.
I have a question for you. And I want to go, I think it was on page 100 of the Turkish version. and you've got a
Turn
couple
to page
pictures of some
100.
slides. Yeah, take a moment to turn to page 100, and you've got a couple slides on there. One is the default slide, and it's got a bunch of grid lines, and they're very dark grid lines. And then you make some very simple changes, which vastly, in my opinion, vastly improves the appearance of the slide. You take away a couple of the grid lines, you make the remaining grid lines a lighter color. These are not radical changes, but they have a huge improvement on how the slide looks. And so I wanted to ask you, if PowerPoint could do, I mean, how old is PowerPoint? PowerPoint's what, about 35 years old or something like that?
Well, in the book, I also talk about how it all started, where we got here. And let me check. Yeah, it came out in 1987.
Okay. So
by Forethought, by the way. Interesting fact, it wasn't even Microsoft back then.
What was it called back then? What was it called?
The company was called Forethought.
Forethought.
I think it's a Silicon Valley company.
Okay. So my question for you is, these are incredibly simple changes. They'll remove some grid lines, make the remaining grid lines lighter. These are some incredibly simple changes. And PowerPoint has been around for a long time. Why do you think that they haven't done this already? Why is PowerPoint still producing?
It's a very good question.
Why is PowerPoint still producing by default these incredibly ugly graphs? Do you have any thoughts on why that might be?
I don't know. Well, if I start voicing my thoughts on that, this podcast will not be like 15 minutes. It will be like 15 hours.
True.
The thing is, I don't know. Like even this day, even the latest version of the PowerPoint, for example, I'll come back to the charts in a second. But one of the biggest problems is you launch the software. The screen that you're greeted with is a white blank slide, which I have nothing against white blankness or empty space. But there are two boxes on the software, like the welcome screen. Click to enter title, click to enter subtitle. And of course, people just start typing things, which is pretty natural. The short answer is, I don't know. But I mean, when you insert any chart into the software, you're given also, I don't know, like 10, 15 other ready-made design layouts, which are horrible. I mean, all of them are worse than all of them individually. So there is not even one that I can use. I don't know why. I mean, my journey with slide design has always been whatever the software gives me, I just start picking things apart and removing them to end up with something that is easy and simple to understand.
Yeah.
But that's a beautiful question. I have absolutely no idea why they do that.
I have a theory on that. And, I don't work for Microsoft. I'm not on the PowerPoint team, obviously. So I might have no idea. I should probably ask somebody who works at Microsoft. Because anyway, my theory is that PowerPoint is made by software engineers. And software engineers, I mean, they're brilliant in other things. When it comes to a programming language or learning new programming languages, it's amazing how fast a good one can do it. But they're not trained. A brilliant designer is usually not a brilliant software engineer. So it's completely ridiculous. It's completely unrealistic to expect a software engineer who might be brilliant at engineering software to also be a brilliant designer. Maybe that's why. Maybe it's because you have the defaults being cranked out by people who are not professional designers. They're professional software engineers, which
I think that's a good theory. And and thank God, because otherwise we wouldn't have a business.
Yeah, that's true. If PowerPoint were produced by professional designers, PowerPoint would probably not exist because it's a piece of software.
And I would be out of business.
Yeah. So anyway, so back away from Matt's theory on why
I told you this could take 15 hours. Okay. Let's not get in there.
All right. So we just have a couple minutes, and so I have another question for you. And that is of the various tips in this book, and this book is filled with tips. There are a gazillion tips in this book. Of some of those gazillion, what are some of your favorite tips in this book? What do you wish people would do more often?
That's a good question. I think, I have the second part of the book, the design part, actually starts with the title, start with a simple design, which is instead of rushing into filling the slide with a bunch of things like text or pictures or charts or whatever. The idea is to start simple and preferably stay simple. And when you do that, it actually creates a stronger communication channel between the presenter and the audience. And one of the things that I advocate in the book is, look, slides are for free. You just press the enter key and you get a new slide. You don't pay for it. You don't,
True.
You don't have to think about additional costs. If you have a complicated slide, just divide it into 3 slides and use one idea per slide. I think that would be the biggest thing that I would want people to take out of this book. And of course, which automatically brings the question, yes, but what about my slide count? So if I do that, the number of slides in my presentation will increase. And that brings us dangerously close to another rant and rave session by me, because that's the biggest objection that I received. And I'll just keep things simple by saying, just don't worry about the slide count. It doesn't matter if it doesn't matter if you deliver a 10-minute presentation with 10 slides or 30 slides, given that you're not hitting your audience like a machine gun fire with one slide after another. The idea is to get your point across. And if you have 10 minutes to do that, you're free to choose to use 5 slides or 15 slides or 20 slides or whatever. But the most important thing is for people to be able to look at each slide that you're showing and get the idea in a couple of seconds, not longer than that. So I think the idea which I would want people to take away the most would be, start simple, keep things simple, and do not worry about the slide count if you think you have crowded slides and you should split them into multiple slides.
So we're out of time. It's time to wrap it up. But I just have one more comment, and that is that a couple days ago I saw a slide deck. You would have loved this slide deck. I say love sarcastically.
Love as in quotes.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Love in quotes. You would have actually banged your head against the wall. This slide deck was 75 pages, mostly text. And it looked like a book. And when I saw this slide deck, I thought of you and thought, man, if Alper saw this slide deck, he would spend it would take a year to correct this. 75 pages, mostly text. Anyway.
I love that.
Yeah. So anyway, tell us again the title of your book in Turkish.
Well, in Turkish is Fark Yaratan Sunumlar.
Okay.
In Spanish is Presentaciones que marcan la diferencia, and we can include links for both languages if our listeners are interested, which is ironic because the podcast is in English.
Yeah.
But we can include that. And I will be more than happy to include some of the links for the English resources, which I love and have on my bookshelf, which I'm looking at right now.
Excellent. Well, that's it for today. And thank you for telling us about the book.
Thank you. Good talking to you.
All right,
and I'll see you next week.
Yeah, I'll see you next week. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye. Thank you for listening to The White Rabbit with Matt Krause and Alper Rozanes. You can subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, iTunes, or through your favorite feed.